Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Torri Webster. Oh, hi, we're back. We're rolling. Sometimes we have this soft roll at the beginning, so I don't even know when the pod is back, but we're back, baby. Hi, welcome to That Digital Take with Torri Webster. So here's me now playing with our new name, That Digital Take. Here we are. So I have to give you some backstory. This is the real fun of the pod. I actually get to go into the deep dive and the behind the scenes of all the shit that's been going on behind this camera. So, we started this journey of developing the pod quite a while ago. And the reality was when I got into naming the podcast, it's tough, right? Like finding a name is very all encompassing. It feels like it has to not only define the podcast, but it also creates a little bit of like a brand and all of these things. So it was just something that we were working on for quite a while. And finally, it was actually my sister that came up with the original name for the pod, which you guys may have seen in one of my earlier Instagram teasers, but we were calling it Under the Influence. And I thought it was a really fun name. It was a little bit cheeky, a little a little Call Daddy vibes. Like it was in that zone, which is why I liked it. But in the same breath, I also knew that I always wanted the pod to feel elevated and professional and all that good stuff. So there was like a little bit of a yellow flag in my mind on that name, but I always liked it because I thought it was attention grabbing and really fun. Anyways, fast forward. Turns out there's a gentleman on another podcast who is using that name. And as it stands in the industry, it's always best to kind of own your own IP, and you never want to feel like you're copying another creative or stealing someone's thunder. So, I took the long route, spoke with some professional people, some lawyers, and it was just best that I pivoted and rebranded and changed the name of the pod. So by the time it's reaching you, I luckily haven't released anything under the name Under the Influence. So this is maybe surprising for you to hear because we're quite a few episodes in now. And for you, all of the branding from the beginning will sound like That Digital Take, which is great because I love the new name and I'm really happy with it. But basically it has been an interesting journey to get here and to land on that name. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because when we talk about passion projects and when we talk about developing things that we're excited about as creatives, I think it's really easy to get ahead of ourselves sometimes. And there's some learning lessons there and some things that I can share with you guys that clearly I messed up on, that maybe if you're developing something new that you can hear this and hopefully avoid my same mistakes. So a couple small things like just triple checking that people aren't already using that branding, which sounds really simple, but when you have your head down and you're really focused on something you're passionate about, you're not really exploring what other people are doing, because that's kind of how you get into comparison and or you start doubting yourself. So I hadn't really done this extensive deep dive when it had come to naming the pod. So anyways, just do your research. Number one, clearly I fucked that up. Torri, future self, previous self, shame on you. And not only that, but workshop it. Get some feedback from other people. It's interesting, now that we are That Digital Take, it seems like all my friends and family seem to actually like this one better. And it really encompasses what I'm trying to do here, which is challenge the digital industry as a whole. It's not just influencer. We've talked about things like acting. We've talked about so many different industries and so many different impacts that come with this new digital era that we live in. And I think that it really kind of, tackles all that. And the nice funny kind of tie-in is obviously a take is like a take on set. So because I'm here doing a little take, also it's a hot take. There's so many reasons this name is great. This is me trying to sell the name to myself. Anyways, for you guys, this is the name it's always been. I'm excited that it'll be out by the time you are hearing this, and it's That Digital Take with me, Torri Webster. So I wanted to give you that behind the scenes because that's what this pod is all about. So anyways, that was a long-winded intro to say, hey, what's up? We're back. Just got in from New York the other day. I was there for the VMAs, Video Music Awards. Pretty cool, pretty fun. Have to say, not what I was anticipating. The thing that really gets me about going to these US shows or productions, one thing, budget. It's really crazy, the money. You just see it. We could never here in Canada. You think about going to the Junos or, our equivalent to what this award show is, and their scale is just insane. The red carpets, the entertainment, the the size of the fandom, like all of it is so wild. So I think just seeing that in real life was pretty cool, very motivating. We had industry passes, which was really fun. We didn't see the actual red carpet, like where all the celebs went, but we did kind of get to watch the whole show and get, like, you're obviously there while they're filming live television. So seeing a concert happen in real time while they're also producing it in real time for TV and audiences of millions across the US is kind of fantastic and really cool to see all the stagehands. And we kind of had cool seats where we could see behind the stage a little bit. So you really could see all the action happening. And it really is wild to see how many people it takes to put on a show of that caliber. And it was really fantastic. And some of their performances were out of this world. Katy Perry really surprised me. Not that I don't think that she's amazing. I've always loved her music, but her talent was just next level. And she put on such an amazing 10-minute show. Like, I was like, whoa, Katy, go for it, girl. That was amazing. We saw Sabrina Carpenter play. I'm actually going to her concert in Toronto in a few weeks. I'm really excited about that. But yeah, just seeing the machine that is US media really just does blow my mind. A few other notable performances. Lenny Kravitz performed, which was quite fantastic. There was a few performances I will say did not slap, but I don't think that's up to me to expose these artists. I also don't know. I was really curious. Like, sorry, how many of you are lip syncing? Like, just putting it out there. I genuinely mean that. Like, Sabrina sounded fantastic. I'm like, what are the odds this is live? I don't know, because it's also live TV, right? So do they just make everybody lip sync so that there's no issues on the back end? I have so many technical questions. These things I obviously do not have the answers for, but maybe somebody else does. So leave a comment. But maybe it was all live and maybe they are actually just tapping into that fantastic talent. And if that's the case, go off queen. So anyways, loved the VMAs. My boyfriend did not win, by the way. I know I gave you guys the context of why we were going. He lost to Megan Thee Stallion. And yeah, not ideal. But it's okay. We still had a great time, and she was actually the host of the evening. It's interesting how they choose the hosts, in my opinion. I am someone that loves like a Ryan Seacrest, a Jimmy Kimmel. Like I like these people that are like funny, outgoing, kind of trained to be hosts. Sometimes I find it interesting when they just use celebrity for celebrity's sake to host an event. I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't hit for me, just in my opinion. But I don't know. I have nothing against her. It just like wasn't a wow moment. Whereas I feel like some people are like born to be hosts. So anyways, he lost to that song. So he lost to one of her songs. I don't actually know what video she won for, but all that to say, New York was amazing. We're back in Toronto now, but I'm actually heading back to New York on Monday. It's one of those weeks. It's like, spend your time in the airport. But New York is like really funny. A funny place to be in September, rather. New York in September is like walking into a fashion show. There's like an influx of curated events that happen throughout the month of September. VMAs, TIFF season we've talked about. And then obviously New York Fashion Week, right? So I don't know, being in New York during Fashion Week is just a really interesting time. You do not feel superior. Everyone is just rocking the like top end designer moments and like getting their high end photographs in the street. And it's such a specific vibe. And I have so much respect for the fashion industry. I'll start with that. But I also do have a little bit of, or I used to, I'll say rather, I used to have a little bit of resentment towards the fashion industry. And there's a few reasons for that. Like, I think the fashion industry has always felt the most like inaccessible, I guess, whether that's budget, like if you just don't want to be spending the money to be wearing designer clothes, whether it's height. I mean, you guys know I'm 5'1" on a good day, so maybe I'm just like jealous of all the 6'5" models. I don't know. There's so many different reasons, but I also have been to Fashion Week in previous years, and yeah, it just like, it never really hits for me. I feel like there's an exclusivity that exists in that world where I just don't feel seen and I don't feel comfortable, I guess would be the word. Like, I've literally gone to Fashion Week shows, not even like, yes, I've been to shows, but I would go to parties, and I remember going to a photo booth once, and one of the photographers said, "Oh, sorry, sweetie, we're only shooting models tonight." Blah. Okay. Like, sorry that I'm 5'1" and not your cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? Like they just if it's not what they sign off on, they just do not buy into you. And I just kind of resent that. Like whatever, that's just my own personal feelings towards it. However, that was like probably 5 years ago. I don't frequent fashion weeks anymore. Probably for those reasons, I'm not overly drawn to it. As a consumer, I also don't know if I'm hyper obsessed with that content. It feels very I have this, but you don't. Like, here's my new Prada bag, but you don't have it. Like, again, I don't know why I'm in such a pissy mood about this today, but I don't know. I kind of like avoid the fashion week of it all. That being said, in the last couple years, and specifically, I would say in the last year, and especially when I was consuming the past week's content of Fashion Week content and also being in New York, I did have an interesting change of tune. And I was like, what's very interesting to me and intriguing now is looking at these industries and how they've actually adjusted to this new creator economy and to the influencer market. Because like I just said, Fashion Week used to be like this super elitist, unapproachable world, Anna Wintour shaming you all day long. And now I feel like Fashion Week is a lot less stuffy. It feels like we're seeing more real people, not only in the shows, but reflected in the content online. We're seeing influencers walk in the fashion shows, which I think is really quite cool. And then we're tapping more into what that everyday consumer wants. And so with all of those things, it got me on this larger topic. Like guys, this is so funny. It's always like, how do I come up with like the weekly topic is always these interesting things that are happening in the real world for me as a creator. And then I think it's so cool to come to the pod and like I've discussed with you, like bring up those topics on a greater scale and talk about them a little bit and challenge them and all that good stuff. So that brings me to this week's topic, which is how has the influencer and how has the role of influencer actually disrupted industries? Because like let's talk about fashion. Fashion first. Obviously, we've seen now all the way that the influencers are styling this ready-to-wear content. But then we also have the beauty industry. Like we had this traditional marketing at first where fashion and beauty brands, they always relied on celebrity endorsements originally, right? It was like magazine ads and fashion shows for visibility. And they had a very specific, stringent way of going about promotion, right? So influencers, and now more than ever, and especially micro and nano influencers, have kind of democratized this space. And we now make these trends. And we make products feel a lot more accessible while also tapping into our audiences on social media. So it also then brought up this whole other topic of celebrity, because the way that I shop now, right? And when I scroll on TikTok, I'm so hyper obsessed with just like a moment in time. It doesn't matter if I follow that person or not. If they have a sick outfit and I want their sweater, for me, that's like an easy click to purchase. If it's just like as simple as, hey, I think that sweater is so dope, I just want to buy that. So, but it used to be celebrity endorsements, and that was so much higher scale, and consumers trust influencers more than what that celebrity used to feel like. Because one, influencers feel obviously more relatable, as we know. There's like more authenticity tied to us, but we also can just wear the clothes in regular settings. It feels like our recommendations are also more personalized. Like if I'm recommending a certain outfit to you, it feels like, oh, you just want to wear this because you saw me wear it. But it feels really achievable because, oh, Torri was wearing it and that's so cool. And I feel the same about the influencers I follow. Like if I love someone's dress and they're wearing it to a really cool event, for me, it's maybe as simple as like click to purchase. I want to wear that same dress. Whereas with celebrity, it always felt a little bit unattainable. It was like these traditional ads, right? And even if I saw Jennifer Aniston in a look, like I remember, here's a good example. I remember back in the day being really, really obsessed with Miley Cyrus. Like I had a deep love affair with Miley back in like the 2008s. And she used to have different like links, I guess you would call them, because it was a different time to shop, right? It was like a really different experience back then, but it would be like links on fashion sites that would link to her outfits, because that's what it still was. It was like traditional magazine a little bit, but more like digital magazine. And I remember she would have these like Alexander Wang boots, for example. They were like the Freja boot. I can't believe I remember that. They were so iconic. And I would just search up and down the internet on this like Freja boot. Like I was so obsessed with it, but in such a different way than I would be now if an influencer were to wear things. I'm not saying the impact is not the same. Like, I wanted the Freja boot. I wanted to wear Alexander Wang because Miley did. It did, however, feel less accessible to me. It wasn't like I was going to go to Barney's New York and buy these Alexander Wang boots. Although I guess I could have, but that wasn't like the experience. Whereas I feel like now if I see an influencer rock like, let's say, a high-end like Acne Studios sweater, I don't know, it feels so much more accessible. It's like, hey, link to purchase, click, like it's yours. In a way, I kind of miss the old journey in the sense that you had to like deep dive into the internet to find out what was cool. And it was a more if you know type deal. If you knew the cool brands, if you knew the underground brands, like it's almost like this is such an aside, like whatever, I'm going on a tangent, but this is such an aside. But I think taste has changed a lot because of the creator economy. We don't have a very good touch point on our taste anymore because we're always copying each other. Whereas when I think back to my 2008 Miley Cyrus loving era, I think we were curating our taste much better because we were really focused on key people that we loved versus consuming everybody's content. Does that make sense? Because when I think back to that era, I feel like I had a really strong sense of not only self, but like fashion and self in that moment because I knew who my influences were. Whereas now we're just hyper obsessed with influencer as a whole. And it can be really easy to lose track of yourself and your fashion when you're like just basically consuming everything. And to bring it full circle and to talk about Fashion Week, I feel like that's why it's interesting how influencer has changed all these industries because yes, it's making it way more accessible for consumers and we feel more seen and all of that good stuff. And obviously the fashion and beauty industry are flourishing because of the influencer economy. But in that same breath, I'm wondering if we're losing our own sense of like je ne sais quoi, like our own style, our own fashion because we are carbon copies of each other now. Like we're obsessed with trends. It's interesting. Anyways, but all that to say, it's been really cool to see how influencer has changed the dynamic of brands in the fashion space, in the beauty space. We have brands like Glossier. We have brands like Kylie Cosmetics. Like these brands would not exist if it were not for the success of influencer marketing. And for me, that's really cool to see. But like I said, in every situation like this, and what we do on this pod is like kind of challenge both sides. So it's like, yeah, we're getting like access to these incredible brands, but like, are we losing ourselves in the journey of that? Are we losing our taste? Are we losing our sense of being able to be unique in the way that we show up fashionably? Like I'll wear what I'm wearing is a perfect example. I'm wearing an Aritzia contour shirt. Why? Last year, contour was probably the number one trend on TikTok. Skims was trending. Like it's the way that we shop is influenced by what the other creators and what the market is telling us is trending. Whereas, like I said, back in the early 2000s, it was much more celebrity driven and we were inspired by celebrity and we'd wear like celebrity, the double denim, like a Britney moment or the Paris Hilton Juicy Couture. Like there's so many iconic moments I could reference that are specific to celebrity and how they've still influenced fashion and culture. But something about that era feels like people had more of a touch point on which category they fit into. Like if I was a Paris girl, I was a Paris girl and I was rocking my pink Motorola flip phone with my Juice Couture sweats. And if I was a Miley girl, I had my Freja Alexander Wang boots on. I had my absolute fucking extensions in because that was her era of hair extensions. And it was all of those influences. And it's not to say that it's completely shifted, but I do think we no longer look to celebrity for that. We now look to influencer for that. And that's just a little bit probably scary for celebrities, which I've never really thought about, but they must feel threatened. Do you feel threatened, celebrities? Do you feel threatened by the influencer economy? I'm not sure. Anyways, let's talk about some other ways that influencer has impacted different industries. Because obviously fashion and beauty is like the most obvious one, but there's some that I think are less obvious that are definitely cool to chat about. Okay, so another industry that has been so impacted by influencer is the health and wellness industry. And I'm sure you guys have seen this as well. And fitness and wellness influencers have really popularized so many niche trends, different diets, different workout routines. Like we see on TikTok, the intermittent fasting, the HIIT routines, the vegan diets, like all of these things. And the influence has shifted consumers' behavior and has honestly changed so much about the industry. And what's really interesting to me about the health and wellness industry in particular is we actually take advice from these people. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying these aren't necessarily experts or people that have gone to school for health and wellness. But, I see on TikTok, for example, people talk about different supplements and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the supplement to take if you need a good night's sleep. Like, this is what to take if like, I don't know, have anxiety. Like, there's all of these different people out here that are giving advice and recommendations on supplements and workouts and skincare and all of these health and wellness things. And I wonder in a collective how everybody feels about this. Like, I, for one, really love to get advice on TikTok. I think it's cool to look into health trends. There was that kind of really interesting one last year where everyone was like walking on a on an incline on the treadmills. And listen, like, I'll take what I can get. Like, if that's going to work for me and that's going to be a good workout, I think that's really awesome. But again, to challenge this, I think where I take issue a little bit with influencers taking such a huge stance on health and wellness is I just want to make sure that people understand that that's not necessarily expert and or medical advice. Like, I that's maybe the weird fine line. And it's not like people have to disclose that on social media either, which is kind of interesting. Like, I could technically go on social media and just be like, okay, yeah, like today, here's my health tips. And sure, you might want to have a body that looks like mine and whatever, but that doesn't mean that they're going to work for everybody. Like, it's not a one size fits all experience. So I don't know. I think it's interesting either way. It's just an industry that has been so impacted by influencer and by the way that we talk about health and wellness now. And it's like the celery juice craze, right? Like, would we have all gotten into celery juice if that wasn't trending on TikTok? I don't know. I really don't think so because I'm pretty sure it tastes like shit. Okay, let's talk about another industry that has been really, really targeted from influencer. This is the travel and hospitality industry. Now, let's talk about it. It used to be traditional travel agencies, obviously. Now we look at travel influencers. I have friends that are travel influencers and they have this like stunning content. It's all drone content. It's all personalized recommendations. And they have completely disrupted what used to be traditional travel agencies, making everything easy for travelers to book. And it used to be like, hey, book this experience. And now it's, hey, what video am I saving on literal TikTok to figure out like what hotel I'm staying at when I go to New York City, which is honestly a madness when you think about it, because all of these platforms have basically become the perfect destination for discovering these hidden gems or places that you wouldn't otherwise find. Like, these are accommodations and travel destinations that have become popularized only because of TikTok. Or I'm saying TikTok specifically, but really it's all social media platforms. And it's interesting because I've actually worked with tourist boards before. So I went to Dominican Republic last year just to like work with the tourism board to promote tourism in DR. And that alone is so crazy. It's like you have influencers promoting specific destinations, and it used to be really focused on that, like, very glossy travel experience where you'd look through brochures and you'd be like, okay, like, where do I want to spend my $10,000 this year to go on vacation? And now we're looking at all these personalized moments that are showcased on someone's personal social media to basically be like, yep, that's exactly where I want to go on Sunday, book and done. And I think that's wild. And the way that influencers can impact those industries, not only is it very exciting because we get to popularize new places and popularize new cool upcoming hotels. Like, there's so many awesome ways to impact small businesses when it comes to travel and tourism and all those great things. And I just find it really exciting. Now, I seem to be putting a negative spin on every single industry that I've talked about. So let's talk about the negative spin on travel with influencer. I hate that then it becomes locations that become so busy and oversaturized because of social media. Like, that's kind of annoying, right? Like, if you have a hole-in-the-wall hotel in New York that you just know is the spot and then it gets blown up on social media and you can never book a stay there anymore because it's too busy, like, okay, that fucking sucks. And what else sucks? airline like discounts. There was like all these trends on TikTok about people talking about how to like get discounts online. It's like, sorry, you're ruining it for the people that always knew the hack, okay? Because then the airlines get up to speed on it and then they get pissy and then they remove all the discounts and make it more expensive for everybody. So I don't know, right? It's like this like very, it's a catch-22. Yeah, you're going to get access to figuring out what all the cool hotspots and hidden gems are. But in the same breath, you're probably making things more expensive because they're becoming so popularized, whether that's flights, hotels, restaurants, etc. So I don't know. There's good, there's bad, but these industries are getting impacted either way. All right. Another industry that I feel like has just shifted completely since the creator economy is the entertainment industry. So obviously, that kind of goes without saying, but creators are now basically brands, right? So influencers have become this entertainment for people, and we are the brands now, and we create this content. And now we compete ourselves with traditional media outlets, and we produce our own podcasts like this one. We produce our own web series. We produce short films. We often also attract larger audiences than some of these traditional TV programs. And that is so interesting because I think the traditional entertainment industry hates influencer because they're scared of influencer. They don't know how to control us. We're like, no, we're going to produce our own content. We're going to have all this amazing content that's going viral. And they can't keep up with our output, right? Like we can put out so much more content than they can. When you think about how high production things are, whether that's like a daily talk show or a news channel or anything, the amount of manpower it takes to get that off the ground versus just me alone with a camera producing a podcast, it's wild. It's complete. You can't even compare them, which is honestly upsetting for the traditional industry because the traditional industry is like, we've been here longer. We have our stance. You know, things have to be done our way. And then meanwhile, you have influencer knocking at the door being like, no thanks. We're going to do it our way. And we're going to do it faster, stronger, better, and get more reach. So of course, where are the ad dollars going to go? Just me making, where are the ad dollars gonna go? Guys, I'm being crazy today. I don't even know what's going on, but you know what? I do know what's going on. Again, an aside, but this Aura ring I have on. So, I I check my Aura ring every day because I sleep with it. I slept 11 hours last night. I think that's like too much sleep for my brain, and my brain doesn't know how to keep up with my thoughts. So I'm like, oh my God, I've slept 11 hours. Where are the ad dollars going to go? Anyways, you guys are getting a very fun version. So this is Torri when she slept. Okay, let's chat about another industry that has been just absolutely blown up by influencer. Food and bev, baby. This industry is so different than what it used to be because of the rise of influencer. For one, you obviously have like the home cooks, like people that are food bloggers and people that are sharing recipes. So influencers already disrupted what the restaurant industry used to be because people are like more inspired to create that like viral recipe or cook from home or like do those things because they're trendy. Like remember during COVID when everyone was obsessed with that bours and cheese like pasta, so random. But yeah, like we're more inspired, right? We're like, oh, you know what? I'm inspired to like make that mac and cheese, or no, what was it? It was like the flip burger, whatever. There's all these like TikTok foods that people now want to make. And so we've shifted away from what used to be really exciting, like dining experiences. And now we're like, you know what? It's okay. We're going to like work from home. So we love following all of those viral trends when it comes to food. Now, when it comes to cooking food, that's one thing. Then there's following the viral trends when it comes to actual restaurants. And I mean, you can't even lie. This is so real. You're going somewhere. Where's the first place you check for a review when it comes to figuring out what's the cool new hotspot? Let's say you're going to a new city. I always check TikTok. I'm like, what's like the cool new restaurant in Boston? You type in like fun restaurants Boston. Immediately you're served like all of these different things. It's just wild. It's like the way that we all kind of get obsessed with food is because of social media now. People were obsessed with sourdough. Like, what was the obsession with sourdough in the pandemic? Everyone's like, who's got the starter? Who has the starter? Who has that fresh bread? And I just think that's so wild. Like, we're creating trends out of just moments in time of what people are eating online. The cucumber. Right now, the cucumber is at an all-time high. I, for one, have never made a cucumber salad before this year. Didn't know it was a thing. Now, what's his name on TikTok? Obsessed with cucumber salads. I said, okay, this is my year for being obsessed with cucumber salads. I just think that's a wild industry that we aren't even acknowledging that we have such an impact on. I mean, maybe we are acknowledging it, but I feel like nobody talks about it. Like food and bev, influencer. It's like so tied together in my head. Okay, and then the final industry, I mean, listen, there's so many. I just wanted to tackle a few today where I feel like there is a huge impact, and this is one where I see it. Media and publishing is another one. Now, it used to be that we used to go to a library, right? Now, influencers have become this like gatekeeper of information. We now share things on politics, on finance, on technology, and I find that very intriguing because basically, our opinions can sway public sentiment and also disrupt news cycles and even influence stock market trends, which is actually literally insane. Like, think GameStop and all of that. That was all part of like influencer. And one thing on top of that is also just traditional books and traditional book sales and book recommendations. When we think about things like Book Talk and Bookstagram and the way that people shop for books now is shifted the publishing industry like completely, like on a full 360, because now people go to TikTok for recommendations and we're often like surprised by like what are these new bestsellers and what's coming out. And I find it really cool because, for example, Book Talk, when we think about that movie now, It Ends With Us, that all happened because It Ends With Us, the novel, went mega viral on TikTok. Not only did that influence culture, but then it influenced media, and then it influenced the entertainment industry, and then it said, let's turn ourselves into a major motion picture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we see how literally starting with just influencer, these impacts on the economy, on the way that we think, on the way that we show up is just making such a large stream. Like, it's like you toss the rock into the lake and we see these ripple effects of influencer everywhere. And I find it fascinating. I find it exciting. I also find it something worth challenging, like we've chatted about today. But I think it's just very interesting to keep top of mind. And when I sought out to go into this podcast and talk about that digital take, it was all about figuring out, you know, where is the world of influencer going, but also where have we been, and finding a new level of respect for this industry as a whole. So I think talking about this weekly topic today was to give you, if you're just a listener that's outside of this industry, or if you're someone in this industry, to give you context in a way that is showing how much of an impact we can have. I think sometimes we forget our own power. And like I've talked about, this is a job that can often feel, you know, poo-pooed or, haha, why are you an influencer? But when we look at the ways that influencer is influencing, looks like we're doing our job. When we look at the way that influencer is influencing culture as a whole and in these mega industries, I think it's really fascinating and important to remember, because this is just the beginning of our impact and just the beginning of how we're heading into these industries. There's so many other industries that we've impacted. Technology is one of them. Real estate and design is one of them. There's so many to explore. So I will leave you with all of that to think about today. And I'm really curious. I would love to hear your insight on this. What industries do you feel influencer has really impacted, changed, made better, made worse? Any of your feedback, I would love to hear. Maybe these are some industries we can chat about in future episodes and kind of tackle some of those ideas together. So leave me a comment on Instagram. You can find me at Torri Webster or at That Digital Take. So I just wanted to give you that big picture today. And I think it's important to remember all of the beautiful things that we're impacting. You would not be eating your cucumber salad if it weren't for influencers. So anyways, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of That Digital Take, and I will see you in the next one. Probably less well-rested, with less energy and less zest. So I will see you there, baby. Love ya. Mean it. Bye.